Greetings, my lovelies. This is Blake here, and welcome to my review of Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F. So, I was a huge DBZ fan during my teenage years. I'd actually watched the original Dragon Ball show when I was a kid. It was playing right before WMAC Masters, which was like a wrestling type show, except with martial arts. It was really weird. And I liked it, but at the same time, once it was, I don't know if I want to say canceled, but it was pulled off the air, I didn't really think to pursue it. And so when I heard about Dragon Ball Z, I figured, okay, well, I might as well, watch an episode. And I was really confused. I thought Gohan was Goku, Goku was Yamcha. It was a very surreal experience for me. But eventually it caught on, and I became a huge, passionate fan up until the Majin Buu saga. In fact, I think my interest in the franchise was slowly deflating, but even though there was nothing really bad about that arc, I just I got tired of Dragon Ball, and I had no desire to continue watching the series. Eventually, I did return to it. I finished the show. I actually watched quite a bit of Dragon Ball Z Kai, even though I think it's kind of pointless. And I even saw Dragon Ball GT, which isn't as terrible as everybody says it is, but it's not very good either. But when it comes to the movies, I'm not going to review them all. There's some that I really like, there's some that I really dislike, and most are just in between. I'd probably say the best one of them is Dragon Ball Evolution. Just kidding. That's a piece of shit. And so is that other live-action movie, The Magic Begins. It's funny because Evolution sucks because it totally is nothing like Dragon Ball. And The Magic Begins is actually pretty faithful to Dragon Ball, but it's just a shitty movie. There's apparently a third live-action film that's very rare, but I haven't seen that yet, so I have no immediate plans to. Now, I'd say the best is the first Brawly one. That one actually experienced kind of a backlash because a lot of people think it's really overrated, and I do understand, but I thought it was the most, I'm going to say, advanced of all the movies. It had probably the best storyline, the best character writing. I just really liked it. And then I'd say the worst is the second Brawly movie, not the third. I don't think the third one's really that bad, but the second one I thought sucked. But, there's other ones I liked and other ones I disliked. But the only one that really matters for the context of this video is the last one, Battle of Gods, which is actually the first real Dragon Ball Z movie. The others are more like, I say specials, but I guess there's an official term for them, OVAs or something like that. I liked Battle of Gods. I understand if you don't, because it's very comedy-oriented compared to what fans of DBZ are used to. In fact, it's a lot more like the original Dragon Ball, and you're either going to think it's funny or you're not. I thought it was funny. It made me laugh, and it was very nostalgic. I thought it relied a bit too much on CGI in the battles, and it was almost as if this, anime had suddenly been interrupted by a cutscene from a video game. It just did not go well together at all. But I still had fun. It's nothing great. It's not my favorite Dragon Ball Z movie, or really even up there, but I thought it was a good one. So now we have Resurrection F, and when I first heard about this, I was pleased, even though a lot of people thought that going back to Frieza was a major step back. I was cool with it because I really hated what the anime did to Frieza, and this was sort of redeeming his image, and I really liked it, and I saw it in theaters, and that's why I'm doing this video, and oh my god, this film, there's something truly special about seeing a Dragon Ball Z movie on the big screen, especially one that is as good as this. And my biggest concern regarding Resurrection F is that maybe I'm not really reviewing the movie itself. Maybe I'm reviewing the experience surrounding the movie. because there are quite a few flaws. I can't call this a great movie on its own. If you're not a fan of Dragon Ball Z, you're not going to like this. It relies too much on past information, stuff that occurred, in the show, and they spend quite a bit of time explaining it, but it's still, if you haven't seen the show, you're going to be really confused. There's just too much information you have to process. But if you are a fan, you're going to enjoy all the fan service, the various nods to stuff that happened within the show, stuff that is, I guess, non-canon now within the show, whether it was anime filler or the other movies or Dragon Ball. Well, I guess this one didn't have any reference to Dragon Ball GT that I noticed. The last one did. But like here, for example, Frieza takes out Gohan in one punch. And I'm thinking this has to be sort of a reference to when Gohan did the same in Fusion Reborn, which is also a really good Dragon Ball Z movie. So stuff like that, yeah, if you're a fan, you're going to enjoy that kind of stuff. If you're not, you're going to just be even more confused. So only watch Resurrection F if you are a big Dragon Ball Z fan. There's really no story. It's just Frieza gets revived, and then he wants revenge, so then he invades Earth. And then everybody fights. And I think it's kind of funny that some of the other Dragon Ball Z movies, which are once again like 45 minutes long, they have deeper stories than what these more recent films with full running times have. But that's... I can't really explain that. That's just kind of weird. Obviously, these films are more interested in being, nostalgia trips, and I guess that's okay. I think, though, if they do a third one, and I'm sure they will, they need to start doing more. They can't just coast off this for too long. The action scenes, though, were really cool. They were fully animated. I didn't notice any corner cutting tactics that the TV show and sometimes the previous movies would really exploit. There's definitely some CGI used here, especially in the backgrounds, and it's not great at times, but I never thought it was bad enough to where it took me out of the movie. It wasn't like Battle of Gods, where suddenly they're anime styled characters, and then now they're PlayStation 2 or 3 caricatures. It's nothing that extreme like what Battle of the Gods did, but it still can get a little noticeable. But like I said, it never really took me out of the movie. I only bring it up for the sake of bringing it up. Sure, some of the background looked a little crude, but there's also some really chilling imagery. I did feel like a lot of detail was put into this art style. And I love the eye-popping colors, which stuff that if you've seen Dragon Ball, you already know what I'm talking about. But still, it's just unique seeing this style on the big screen when CG animation has kind of taken over. So once again, if you have that opportunity, you really should see Resurrection F in the theaters. But I think what I loved the most was the humor. This movie cracked me up so much. And I thought Battle of Gods was pretty funny, but this one, it's hilarious, but not in a way that really ruins the characters. So you're not seeing Vegeta make an ass of himself, doing that strange dance bit. It's not quite as broad. It's just that, the reactions are amusing. The characters are put into situations that are amusing. I loved, for example, when Vegeta wants to fight Frieza, so he starts attacking Goku, and they start fighting each other while Frieza just kind of watches like, what? It's just such a Vegeta thing to do, but it's played for laughs, and I thought it worked. Then the dialogue, I saw obviously the Funimation dubbed version, and I thought the dialogue was hilarious. There are a lot of great lines that cracked up the audience I was with so much to the point where sometimes it would drown out subsequent dialogue. People were really laughing hard, and I was too, and that's just once again added to the atmosphere of the movie. When this is getting much more laughs than pretty much any comedy I've seen in the last few years, even the good ones. It's because everybody's just so excited to see Dragon Ball on the big screen, and once again that still makes me concerned. Am I reviewing the experience or the movie itself? But for now, it doesn't matter. I'll see it again when it comes out on DVD and see if it holds up. But I thought it was hilarious. In terms of the characters and how they're used, what's bizarre is Frieza is kind of the main character. The first act is dedicated to bringing him back to life. And then it seems like most of the screen time is dedicated to him. I did think one area this film kind of screwed up is the passage of time didn't always feel right. It seems like Frieza gets resurrected, says, I just need a few months and I'll be ready. And then it immediately cuts to him beginning his invasion. And I didn't realize that much time had gone by until somebody, I think Piccolo, just briefly mentions it later on, almost as if the writers or director or whoever realized that they had forgotten to really mention that, so they threw it in after they had already animated the first half of the movie. So that was cool, and I like Frieza. I thought he was probably the best Dragon Ball villain, and most of the Dragon Ball villains were really good, but Frieza's the kind of villain who he could be funny and scary at the same time. There's always something unsettling about him, whereas Cell was never really that funny, and Majin Buu could be comical, but generally in a way that you couldn't totally take that character seriously during parts, and you weren't really supposed to. But I thought Frieza, he's just kind of sophisticated. He has this dark sense of humor, and that's just the main reason why I enjoy watching him. Furthermore, he's so twisted and evil that you love to hate him, but you don't love him. Certain Dragon Ball characters, or at least the villains, they're just too cool to where they're probably going to turn good, so you can never totally despise them, like Vegeta when he first appeared as the antagonist, or Piccolo before him. So that's why I think Frieza has always been a very effective villain, but then the anime totally raped his image by making him into one of the biggest jokes of the entire series, to where they released that one special episode a few years ago, and they're like, oh yeah, Frieza, he wasn't really that dangerous, wasn't he? And I'm like, man, that was the longest running arc, I think, of the entire series, and it was the most dramatic and intense, and yet apparently in retrospect it wasn't that big of a deal. So I was glad that they brought him back. I felt Frieza was very relevant and dangerous, even though I never really felt he stood a chance in the long run. But he was still incredibly powerful. One thing I didn't like was how in the anime they had Cold apparently be stronger than Frieza, or Cooler would apparently be stronger than Frieza. To me, especially with Cooler, that never made sense, because if Cooler was stronger, then wouldn't Cold favor Cooler? That's just in Cold's personality. So my presumption was that Cooler was full of shit and was not as strong as Frieza, except when he transformed into that new form. But I guess it's another topic for. Well, you could read my reviews of those movies if you are interested in what I think about that. But I like the idea that Frieza was strong, but at the same time he had never had to train before. So then, what happens when he does put his mind and body to work? And then when he makes that spike, I totally bought it, and that makes me think, wow. I mean, if Frieza does come back again, he is easily going to be the biggest threat, because in just a few months he'll be ready, and if he spent a significant amount of time, a couple of years, everybody would probably be screwed. So I like that. I liked how Frieza was used. I also felt like we learned new stuff about him without changing the characterization at all. Goku, he's, as fun as always. And I liked how the film really brings up his shortcomings and how they can totally backfire on him. In fact, there's like this overarching theme about acknowledging your weaknesses and then overcoming them. Goku, Vegeta, and Frieza all go through this, and I thought that was pretty interesting. Vegeta, I liked how Vegeta was used too. His banter with Goku was very amusing, but also it was really gratifying to see him take on Frieza and actually stand a chance. And that's all I'm going to say about that, but he does briefly get the spotlight, and he is awesome for it. And yet at the same time, Goku's still the real hero. But I did appreciate that, especially as, growing up, Vegeta was always my favorite character. The supporting cast includes Piccolo, Gohan, Tien, Master Roshi, and Krillin. They're all used pretty well, but I thought Gohan was taken out just a bit too quickly, especially as it seemed like they were kind of rebuilding him up a little bit. But I didn't like what they did with Gohan in the show either, where he kind of retires, especially after so much of the franchise was building him up to be the next big thing. So to see him kind of just take that couple steps down, it just never felt right to me. But he still gets some good action moments here, so I can't complain too much. Piccolo, what's weird is Piccolo fights has an even fight with one of Frieza's henchmen, and early on they say that this henchman and another guy is about as strong as Zarbon and Dodoria. Really? If that's true, then he shouldn't have stood a chance. If anything, this guy would have been stronger than Frieza back when, Frieza was the main threat in the Frieza saga. If he's taking on Piccolo, so it's almost weird, like, how come they really need Frieza? This guy alone should be enough to take control of things. But the film doesn't really want you to think about that. And the whole power level concept is just, it's even more confusing than ever. I was surprised how well Frieza's just generic lower level henchmen fared against the good guys. Like you see, Krillin like breathing heavily. When I figured they could have probably, just like one of them probably could have wiped out this entire army in a second based on what I know about the TV show. And it was weird seeing Master Roshi hold his own very well. Apparently he's been training, except he never really wants to help out any other time, and he still hasn't learned to fly. So Master Roshi fans will still be pleased to see him in an actionized role, which I don't think we've really seen since The World's Strongest Man. But still, you can't think too much about it. There's this new guy called Paco, I believe, and he doesn't really add anything to the story. I think he was only there to plug in another manga that he's apparently the main character of, but he was still funny. I thought he was a charming character, so I was perfectly okay with his presence simply because he entertained me whenever the scene would focus on him. Beerus and Whis, I think that's how you pronounce his name, they're back as well, and Whis is the new teacher. And he's pretty interesting, even though his powers at times are almost game-breaking. I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But Beerus, he's just an observer, but he's so amusing that I was perfectly content with seeing him, on the sidelines like that. If they'd used him too much, I think the scenes wouldn't have mattered as much as they did. But I liked how he was utilized. But much like Battle of Gods, there's not really any tension. The characters don't seem to be taking this threat too seriously, but it's more seriously than they acted in Battle of Gods. I thought it was kind of funny how, Beerus shows up and he overpowers everybody with like it's nothing and is planning on destroying the planet, and yet they're all just like, day in the life of a Dragon Ball character. They've become so numb to the concept of death that they no longer feel fear. But here they feel a little bit more fear, but still, you never really feel like Frieza stands a chance because even though he might be stronger than Goku, he's not going to be as strong as Goku and Vegeta together, and they even acknowledge that within the movie. And plus, Beerus and Whis are hanging around, and you know they're stronger than Goku and Vegeta. So it's like Frieza's almost the underdog character. But the film does use that to its advantage after a point where it goes against our expectations, and I thought that was a pretty powerful moment. Now, it leads to the biggest cop-out probably in the entire franchise, and it once again makes me think that a certain character is too powerful, but that's Dragon Ball for you. In the next movie, I think they need to have a villain who is stronger than Whis, because that's the only way I could probably take any of them seriously, because him and Beerus are just too powerful. And that's what we have to say. If you like Dragon Ball, you should like this movie. And I had a lot of fun. And definitely try seeing it in theaters, because just watching it on the big screen is just a magical experience if you're a fan. Also, the sound effects were phenomenal. I felt every impact of every blast and punch or kick. It just made the battle scenes seem that much more epic. So I did do a written review. Please read that. I've also done written reviews of Pound of Flesh with Jean-Claude Van Damme and other things. If you go to my website, you'll see. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I shall see you guys later.